Hey everyone, welcome to the Dental Office Managers Community Podcast, where we talk about the issues that matter most and help us to become better leaders in our dental practice. I'm your host, Kyle Summerford. Let's dive right in. Hey guys, it's Kyle, founder of Dental Office Managers Community, and welcome back to another podcast episode. Today we have Greg Grobmyer from Practice Booster. Greg, thank you so much for coming on today.
Always happy to do this kind of thing, and especially with a fellow coding nerd. I know you're into it too. So with the whole office manager thing, so it's kind of my groove, and I enjoy participating in this type of things.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, it was a pleasure to really to connect with you. And when we first talked, I was like, oh man, yes. I was like, this is awesome. I was like, I got to get him on a podcast and share it in the community. Because yeah, like you said, I love coding. You love coding, and so really kind of just want to get you on here and kind of pick your brain. But first, I'd love for you to share a little bit with our audience on who you are and how you found your way into the coding sector of dentistry.
Absolutely. It was a long and winding road. I kind of told you a little bit about it before we started, but I was a clinically practicing dentist. I practiced for about a decade in West Tennessee, a little over a decade. Ended up finding out, surprisingly, that I had colon cancer. So I went in, was talking to my doctor about acid reflux one day and found out I was anemic. And they kind of pressed me forward to do some other tests, and woke up from a colonoscopy. They said, man, we found a mass that needs to come out. Would you like to do it today? And so literally got put back under, had half my guts taken out that very same day. And I continued to practice for another 6 months while going through chemotherapy. But the chemotherapy it's a platinum containing drug. It's very, very common to cause peripheral neuropathy. And that's exactly what happened. I got to Christmas time and couldn't really button buttons on my shirt anymore. I knew I needed to step out of picking up a handpiece or working on anybody. So,
Wow.
had been working a week and then off a week, dealing with the chemo and the effects of that, but had to exit. And so during the 10 years that I was in dental practice, I was a client of several different practice management coaching companies. And so I was very well versed in a lot of their materials and ideas. And so that was an easy place for me to kind of transition into. After I had partners, it was a group practice, so they were able to buy me out and everything. So I ended up getting a franchise of a national coaching company, and I did that for quite a few years until, again, one of my cohorts wanted my territory and made me an offer I couldn't refuse and bought me out. And so
Wow.
I ended up getting into dental industry writing. I'd been writing for dental industry even while I was in clinical practice. I'd always been writing for our newspapers and
Mm.
things like that, promoting our practice, and mostly kind of public facing things. How to brush your teeth and how to what this product is versus that one. And so writing a lot of blogs and articles and things like that. But that eventually led me into doing this as a freelance writer for the dental industry. I got to do journals and clinical side stuff, and then also got to write for Reader's Digest and
Oh
for
wow, really?
New Health and Slate and New York Magazine. And so
Yeah.
I had to write an article on why Sonic the Hedgehog's teeth looked weird in the movie. Just all kind of bizarre things. But eventually that led me to working with Dr. Charles Blair. He was needing someone to edit the Insurance Solutions newsletter, which is a big publication that been around for many, many years. And so I took over editorship of that and content creation for the majority of the ISN. And that began to evolve as
Wow.
he kind of got a little older. He began to step behind the scenes
Yeah.
and more coached me up to becoming the front man for Practice Booster. And so began doing his speaking engagements when he couldn't travel anymore,
Wow.
picked up the webinars, doing the one-on-one consulting with offices, and writing the Dental Coding with Confidence manual. We wrote that together for the last several years. until we ended up losing Dr. Blair this last November. He
Heard about
passed
that.
away, yeah, after a battle. He had fallen and kind of he had a hip or shoulder fracture is what it was, and was in and out of rehab for a while. Ended up picking up pneumonia, could not
Oh
recover,
boy.
and
Wow.
so major loss for the industry as a whole. But I mean, that was like losing my dad. I mean, it was a very close relationship, and he was my true mentor. And
Wow.
but you know, I felt prepared. I felt, like he had coached me enough over this time, and working with him for 4 or 5 years doing this as he was transitioning out. And so I'm continuing on. We're the whole Practice Booster team is dedicated to continuing his legacy. He
Yeah.
started something amazing, and we're going to keep doing it. And
Yeah.
so it's just there's a void there. There's for sure. I got some big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to fill them or not, but we're doing our best. So
Yeah.
there we go. But that's how I got to where I am and what I do today. So I'm 24/7 into dental coding. Uh,
Yeah.
Not what I saw myself doing when I was a 10-year-old kid.
Of
What do you want
course.
to be
Yeah.
when you grow up? This was probably not it, but I love it. It's a great fit. I'm speaking around the nation and doing my own podcast and webinars and writing for the newsletter and the books that you can see all this
Yeah.
stuff up here.
Yeah.
Creating all those different resources for admin teams all over the country. And so hopefully the folks in your office are the folks that are listening to this podcast, the office managers and those who are in the administrative positions in their office are utilizing some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
good material.
Yeah, I mean, I love your books. I had I think back I forget what year it was I was first introduced by an office manager who was like, "Oh, I got this information from this source." And I was like, "What source?" And she's like, "Oh, from Practice Booster or Coding with Confidence and or the insurance newsletter." I forget which it was exactly, but she was sharing with me and I was like, I've never heard of that. And then I started looking into it. I'm like, wow, I was like, this guy knows everything. Like, how does he know everything? And here I am, as an office manager, I'm learning by doing, and
Right?
that's how I've learned because
Trial
I've
by
worked.
fire, right?
Yeah,
Right.
trial by fire. Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
trial by fire.
And
Yeah.
figure it out as you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know garbage men have no formal training? They just pick it up as they go
They
along.
just pick it up and go along. Yeah. 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 It's kind of it feels like that sometimes,
Nice.
even still today, because I do deal with the insurance companies in the office. So, it's kind of like, you really need to kind of be on top of your game. Like you have to really understand the strategies that the insurance companies are using, Um,
Absolutely.
because even if you're billing correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but even if you're billing something correctly, right? It doesn't really provide enough information behind the procedure for the insurance company to process a claim and pay for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's kind of two sides to what we're teaching and what we do. One is the coding side, the documentation and coding, and what is going out to the insurance companies. But the whole other side of it is the administrative side. And insurance, just because a code exists or a procedure exists, and you may be documenting correctly, you may be putting everything there that they need and providing them all the information they need, they've got their own criteria about when they pay a claim. And that's going to vary from company to company to company. So just because this one covers this particular service, this other company may not. And so they cover it to different levels, not just fee schedules, but I'm talking, some of them will cover for 3 unit bridges on both sides of the mouth. Well, some will remap that to be a partial. And so it's there's a lot of questions that need to be asked during insurance verification. There's a lot of understanding that needs to happen about each particular insurer and the claims criteria that they've got. I know we all get kind of mad at these guys over there who are rubber stamping things and saying no, we deny these
Yeah.
claims, but they're probably just dentists like me who have had some
Yeah.
type of life transition and now this is their job, and they are
Right.
given a book. And this book says, these are the things that we need. These are the criteria that must be met in order for us to pay for the particular procedure. Now, that may differ from the actual CDT code and the criteria that are in the code.
Right.
So those procedures have to meet the CDT code specifications and fully. And there's a lot of stuff that's kind of hidden in those codes. That's one of those things. We're all looking at the nomenclatures, the top line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Read the descriptors. The
Yeah.
descriptors are actually, listing out a lot more specifications about those codes and also criteria that need to be met. And if you're missing some of those criteria, automatically you haven't fulfilled that code, that procedure fully. You've
Yeah.
got opened the door to audit, you've opened the door to claim denials. And so, those things not only have to be done, but they have to be documented.
Yeah.
Because if it's not in the clinical chart, it didn't happen, you know?
Yep.
And so we're
Yeah.
meeting all this stuff, we're turning it all in, and we still get our denials, and that may be because the criteria set within the plan document of that particular plan is different than actually the specifications that are to meet the CDT code itself.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, there's always more to the story. It's like, here's the code. But you have to like throw a whole book with it, right? It's like, well, here's everything that goes with this code. It's like, this is just the code. But by the way, this is why this was done. This is why this was done. This is why the patient needed it. This is what the prognosis. This is, it's not, it's almost like we're telling a story, right? Like we're creating a story behind it.
absolutely. It's the clinical documentation is probably the biggest void in dentistry.
Mm,
Nobody's doing it enough. Very few are doing like a full out kind of soap note type
yeah.
deal where we're talking about why we did what we did and what the other options were, and getting good informed consent, and then documenting every little step that happened and why we did it, and then taking images, making sure you've got those intraoral images pre-op, post-op, including those things along with dental claims. They all tell a story, and it's hard to argue with an image. It's much more difficult to deny that than it is if it's just something that's written. And more, and I know you see this too, they're asking for the actual notes of the date of service as a narrative. They don't
Yeah.
want it. They want the
Yep.
whole thing. They want
Yeah.
and that's a legal document. What's in your clinical documentation is a legal document. A narrative's not. A narrative's a little summary. It's written by somebody. Nothing in the narrative, if you're making one, should not be. It all comes straight out of the clinical charting.
Yeah.
Okay, it's got to be in the documentation there, and that's the thing that not only helps get claims paid, it helps with continuity of care, and it's also the thing that's going to protect you 5 years down the road when there's a lawsuit involved, and you don't remember what happened today, but if it's in that clinical documentation, then you've got a leg to stand on. It's either going to be your best friend or your worst. And
Yeah.
so I mentioned when I do some of my lectures about the different evaluations that we do, like a 120, a 150, a 180. Those things all now absolutely have to have a oral cancer evaluation. And so that's a part of the code. It's in the descriptor of the code that is a necessary component of the delivery of that code. And
Yeah.
so you have to do the clinical notation to say that you looked. Okay. You may be doing it on every single patient, but if you're not writing it down, it didn't happen.
Didn't happen. Yeah. That's the phrase, right? That's like the catchphrase. Like if you didn't write it down, then it didn't happen. Right.
Absolutely. What are the attorneys going to do? Patient does end up with oral cancer 5 years from now. They're looking back at your
Mm,
clinical charting. Is it there?
yeah. Yeah.
And
That's the
it may
problem.
be your protocol that you do it on every patient, but are you writing it down?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that it all comes back to that. And
Yeah.
templates and everything as well. It's nice to have those auto notes and templates, but if you're not making those individualized, customized for the patient that's in the chair, then that's a rubber stamp, and it's not going to hold up in court. It's just not. It's got to be specific for the patient that's there.
Hmm.
So I'm not telling you anything I don't think you already know, but uh,
Yeah,
it's
but it's good for awareness. There's many, there's always, I hear all the time in the group where it's like, hey, I just became an office manager, or I just advanced from dental assistant or front desk and now I'm an office manager. So I feel like, dental practices don't really, like, the dentists don't always really provide that type of training, right? That's not first thing on their mind. Their mind is like, I got to do dentistry, I got to pay the bills, I have so many things going on. So it's good, and what you guys are doing is a need. It's a need. So it fills that need, right? My question to you would be like, how often, like how frequent should dental office managers or dental practices update their coding information? I know it's like a yearly kind of thing, but you
yearly
know,
kind of thing. And so, I mean, um, we say to do it annually because if I look back at the number of changes since 2020, let's talk, pandemic. There's been over 200
mm,
CDT changes since then. And so we've got, more every single year. January 1, they're taking out some codes, they're putting in some codes, they're changing verbiage, they're changing particular criteria. There's a code that you maybe have having used for a very long time, and now you find out that there's a component of that you're not doing. The 210, the comprehensive series of radiographic
FMS.
images. That one changed just a year or two, and it includes some language now that says, hey, you should be taking PAs of areas that are edentulous, PAs where there are no teeth. And a lot of dental practices are not doing that, but to completely fill the requirements of that code, it now says crowns and roots of all teeth, the periapical areas, interproximal areas, and edentulous areas, and alveolar bone, including edentulous areas. That's the
Mm,
verbiage. And so if you're not taking PAs where the teeth used to be, you're not looking at an area that could have residual root tip or a cyst or a little something bad starting there, and so you're missing it, and it's not comprehensive. They changed the
right.
word from complete to comprehensive too,
I
and
see.
so it's those little changes like that. We try to coach, we try to keep up with this. We do a lot of webinars and seminars and things, but the books themselves, they'll show you and break down what those changes are. You can do a 150 along with a 4355 on the same date of service now. There's
Right. Yeah.
lots of little things that could help you out in your delivery of dental care because you didn't know you could do this.
Yeah.
I'm seeing these are 801 integrated a lot now as a wellness scan. That's an intraoral scan. That code is actually changing for 2025. They're calling it, instead of a direct, right now it says 3D dental scan direct. Next year it's going to be intraoral because they're wanting
Mm,
to kind of, make the definition a little more broad. It's not just the teeth, it's the entire inside of the
right.
mouth
Right.
that you're scanning. But I see a lot of dental practices who are doing that as a baseline piece of the dental records. And
Mhm.
so every new patient, they're getting a complete full dental scan, wellness scan. Year or two down the road, then you can do some comparative scans. You can take a new one. There's a digital subtraction code. You can actually take this scan and one from a year or two ago. You can see how the teeth have changed, have the gums receded, is this lesion getting bigger,
Mm,
what's going on. So and you can charge your bill for that.
yeah.
So those are all new procedures, new techniques. Technology is evolving. The
Yeah.
whole Curodont thing, D0 or D2991, that's a new code for that's application of hydroxyapatite regeneration medicament. It's
Mm.
a good mouthful, but
Yeah. Tongue twister.
I know, actually able to treat those little kissing lesions, those little things you've been writing watch on for so long. You
Yep.
can now actually do a treatment to make those resolve instead of just watching them get bigger, you know, because that's what we
Yeah,
do. We
yeah,
like
yeah.
watch, we keep watching until
Watch.
eventually we do a DO and an MO.
Yeah.
And now there's a way to prevent that, and it's much more conservative, and it's a better way of doing it. And so new technologies come along, new coding comes along, and so they pull out the old stuff, they put in the new. I get to go and participate in those meetings every year, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, Greg. How are codes created? Who comes up with this stuff?
Absolutely, and that's really kind of a neat thing. First off, the code changes that are proposed come from anybody. It's
Hmm.
not just the ADA creating these things or some guy in a back room. It's you. You
Yeah.
know, if you figure
Yeah.
out, hey man, I'm doing this procedure and there's not a way to code for this. Or here this new thing that just came out. There's not a it's an entire new proprietary way of doing something.
Mm.
And so if it's a new methodology, a new mechanism of action for doing the thing that it is, it could get a new code. And so people propose these codes. If you go to ADA's website, there's actually a link there that you can click, and you fill out a form. If it's in by November, they look at it the next March. Okay,
Hmm.
and the folks that look at it are it's the ADA. The ADA has what they call their Council on Dental Benefits, and as a part of that, they created the Code Maintenance Committee. The Code Maintenance Committee is 24 voting members. Only 5 are from ADA. 19 are from other places in the industry. The
Oh, wow.
AGD's got a vote. Each of the 12 dental specialties are represented there. There's now
Uh,
13 actually categories of service, but we don't have a sleep apnea specialist yet.
I see.
But that's all there. And then some of the dental payers are there too. Delta Dental's in the house. Okay.
Really?
Medicaid is there. CMS is there.
Wow.
NADP is there. They've got to vote. There's less of
Oh,
them there than
wow.
there are of the dentists. So
Huh.
if the dentists want to get a code pushed through, sometimes the dental insurance people have to come along kicking and screaming because
I'm sure.
we want this thing, and so we'll create this code, but that doesn't mean they have to pay for it.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a whole different conversation. We created
Yeah.
this code, and now it may just be a way to document this step or this procedure. It may or may not be benefited for some time. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. So I'm interested, now you mentioned that part of it. Like, where does the conversation go after? Like, how does whether it's going to be paid by the insurance?
Gotcha. Okay. Essentially, well, first off, on the floor at the Code Maintenance Committee, this happens at ADA headquarters up in Chicago every March. And there's a lot of bouncing around. There's going to be, we like the code as it is, or we want to make these tweaks, or no, we don't want this one at all. There were 91 proposals this
Wow.
last year that we had to go through. It took 2 days to go
I'm
completely
sure.
through,
Sure.
all these codes, and do we want this, do we not, what do we tweak, well, how, what else do we need? And so you hear from both sides. You hear from the dentist side, and you also hear from the payer side. Okay,
Mm.
so you pick that up, and right there the code is created. Now, dental insurance, unlike medical insurance, is a defined benefit plan. It ain't insurance. It's a bunch of people somewhere, probably a smoky boardroom somewhere, going, these are the things that we want our employees to have, or this is how we want to design our plan. And there's a whole conversation about self-funded versus fully insured plans. So
Yeah.
who creates this list of criteria? But they'll figure out, okay, is this a code that we want to cover? And essentially, they're selling a product, and the customer is the employers or potentially the dental patient, not the dentist. Okay,
Right.
we're not the customer here, and so they're
Mm.
trying to make it appeal to the employers or to the people purchasing these plans. And so, as such, they'll look at these different procedures and they'll figure out, is this something that looks attractive? Is this a thing that we think is going to be commonly done? Are the other dental insurers going to be covering this? And then
Yes.
that's going to make their plan look more attractive than ours. You know,
Mhm.
oftentimes once a new code comes out, it takes 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years before they figure out first what the heck it means. A lot of
Yeah,
times,
can
and
imagine.
there's still some codes that have been out there for a long time that have UCRs on them that just don't make sense. And so that's out there. But um,
Could you give us one of those?
6091,
Okay.
replacement of the replaceable part of that's when you've got like a removable denture and you got the O-ring or the
Yeah.
gasket. Okay. What is that? That cost you like a nickel. I mean, it's a little piece of rubber that's this big. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Usually when we're doing fee analysis, I'll put somebody at, 50, $60, mainly for taking those out, each one, putting in a new one. Okay. You look at the UCRs on that from fee schedules, it's like $700, $800.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? That's
Yeah.
not what that is. It doesn't cost $800 to change out an O-ring, but that's what I mean, if you just look at a fee schedule, if you go right now and you pull up Fair Health or NDAS
Yeah.
or one of these other services, you're going to see these outrageous numbers on those particular things. But regardless, back to the original conversation,
Okay.
the point, the way they begin to integrate these things is they see our dentists using these codes. So
Mm.
these are 801 that I talked about earlier. Right now, it's not being benefited as a wellness scan. Okay. But the more and more that's integrated into standard of practice, that becomes like a norm for us to take a full mouth digital scan
Mm.
as a piece of a component of the initial records of a patient. Well, now you've got that as a baseline. And so put a nominal fee on it right now, but you're using the code, you're reporting the code. Eventually, insurers are going to say, okay, this is being done more and more, and we'll begin to potentially reimburse it. Delta Dental this year, and they're the big dog, right? They're the big gorilla in the room,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This year started reimbursing for cone beams,
Yeah.
CBCT,
I saw
one
that.
per patient per year. And so, not with all plans, but with some, it's a great insurance verification question to ask. But if Delta is doing it, okay, that makes Delta look appealing. So, what are the other insurers probably going to do?
Gonna jump in. Yeah.
Very
They have
possibly
they
in the
have to.
next year, 2 or 3, they'll begin to say, well, we want to be competitive, so we
Mhm.
need to start covering this service as well. So it's an evolution, and it doesn't happen overnight. And so
Right.
we try to give guidance. We're trying to be a hub on a wheel. We're connecting the dentist to the payers to the ADA, and we're trying to be in the middle. And we're Switzerland. We're not taking sides on this stuff. We're trying to help everybody work together and benefit the dentist as much as possible along the way. And so the dental office is really who I'm a dentist. I want to make sure that we are getting paid the best way that we can. I want it to be fair, but I'm having a coach as these new codes come out, we're having to teach the insurance company. They're using our books. They're pulling this, and they're
Yeah.
they're they're talking to us, and they're saying, "What the
Yeah.
heck is this? What is this new
Right.
procedure? What do
Yeah.
you see? How do you see it being used?" And so they're going to that, and so and then they're using that to create their in-house criteria, what they call their plan document. The
Yeah.
plan document is a big book. Now, here's a little secret, okay? Everybody gets to see the breakdown of benefits. That's essentially the plan summary, okay?
Right.
15, 20 pages, maybe. All right. You can get your hands on the plan documents also. The plan document is what the in-house guy who is deciding whether the claim is getting paid or not is going by, and it's written. There's multiple steps to it. Must include this, and this. We'll pay it in this situation. We won't pay it if this happens. Here's the limitations or exclusion periods or
Mm.
whatever. It's all in the book, and it's so much easier to play the game when you have the rules to the
Right.
game.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so those
You
particular insurance plans that you work with a lot, you need to get your hand on those plan documents. And so some of those are available if it's a fully insured plan, if it's one that the insurance company themselves created, oftentimes that's downloadable right off their portal. If it's a self-funded plan, one that was created by an employer and funded by an employer, you may have to go through HR. You can't get it yourself, but you can ask a patient to get a copy. They've got, because of consumer protection rules, there's laws in place that they have to be able to have access to that.
Yeah.
And so they can get you a copy of that. And then you've
Now,
got the rules to the game.
yeah. So Greg, I love it. That's, you kind of just touched a little bit on kind of what I said, where it's like, if you don't have the whole story, right, then you're not going to get things paid. But at the same time, you have to know what kind of story you're telling, right? Because it's like, do as bill what you do, but at the same time, you have to document it. There's so many like aspects that work together for getting claims paid, which to me I always found fascinating. I always found it fascinating that it's so complex, right? It is
Right.
complex, but you can make it easy on yourself or you can make it difficult. Right? So, you can send a claim 100 times back. Oh, let me send it back. Let me send it back. It's going to keep getting rejected.
But if your clinical team is not putting the right stuff in the chart to begin with, the office managers can't do their job.
Yes, yes,
It
yes,
starts in the
exactly.
back. It
Yep.
starts in the back. When I coach with offices, we do what's called a revenue enhancement program. It's a 3 hour consult where I look at the coding that is done within a given office. And then I will do a walkthrough of that with the dental team.
Mm,
And when I do that, I like to have everybody there, not just the office admin team or the insurance coordinator. I like to have the hygienist there, and I
yeah,
like to have the chairside assistant there because they're the ones that are capturing this information and putting it in the computer to begin with.
right.
They're the ones that know. They're the ones that are their chairside, and they can tell you what happened that day. If you're up
Exactly.
front, you have no idea. You have no idea what's going on back there with that patient, except what's in the clinical notes.
Right.
And so, we'll walk through and I'll do uh, code coaching essentially on integrating the different things, using the 180 instead of just the 150. That's a big one. That's a big
Yep.
one for practices. Integrating 43, 46 into your practice. That's a big one. Those are opportunities that a lot of practices just aren't using those codes, and there's the potential for higher fee, for higher reimbursement, and it's just the better code. It's more
Yep.
descriptive of what it is that you're doing. And then you
Right.
got to know what attachments, what needs a photo, what language is being used in the narrative. We've got the majority of these claims being auto adjudicated now. They're looked at by a computer. They're being scanned before they see human eyes. They're looking for keywords. We
That
got to have the right keywords there. You got to have the right parts and pieces there. It's going to immediately be kicked back before you even have an opportunity to plead your case. And
yeah.
so, yeah, knowing what needs to go with each type of procedure, that's a lot of the information that we're putting into these books, is what's necessary. So, doing those revenue enhancement seminars, I can actually kind of walk through and talk about, well, this code needs this and use this
Mm.
link. And here's the core buildups. Oh my gosh.
Core buildups. Yeah.
Core buildups
Love
are
core
notorious.
buildups. Yeah.
Yeah, they're notorious about getting kicked back though, getting denials. And
Yeah.
so there's certain language that needs to go there. There's certain images that need to go with that in order to
Yeah.
validate that. And then sometimes you're still going to have a dental plan that says we consider core buildups integral to the crown. And
Inclusive. Yeah.
language is in their plan document. You ain't getting paid for a core buildup. I don't care how much it need to be. What
Yeah.
they're saying is this is not a covered benefit under our plan.
Right.
Not that you did anything wrong. It's that that's not a thing they pay for.
They're not gonna pay. Yeah.
Right.
They're not gonna pay.
Exactly. And if you
Yeah. So
sign that contract, you're saying, yeah, I agree with that. That's
yeah.
cool. I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with not getting paid. Yeah. Greg, let me ask you, you mentioned, claims are getting scanned by computers now. How involved is AI in the process of reviewing claims?
More and more and more every day. Right now, the last figures that I saw, the ones that we're still using in our webinars and everything, was a little greater than 50% of dental payers are using AI to look at images to do
Mm,
measurements to figure out, is enough tooth missing to validate a crown, is enough tooth missing to put for a core buildup, is there enough bone loss present to call this SRP? Okay.
right.
And if you don't have 2 millimeters of bone loss from the CEJ to the crest of bone on your bite wing image, you may not get paid for that site. They may downgrade it from 4341 to 4342, or they may kick it out entirely. And
Yeah.
so that's on the back end of it. That's a tool that's being used by the claims adjusters before it even gets to them. Greater than 75% of dental insurers are using AI to scan claims to begin with. And so they are looking for easy workflows for the people that are there. The human beings are not even involved in the process unless they know, is the provider name correct? Is the ID number matching the patient and the birth date and the location and all this? Uh,
Mm,
this particular code needs images. Are there images attached? Hadn't looked at them, just saying, are there images?
like a
And
filter.
so all those things happen first. And if all those check boxes are checked, then that claim gets to go through to a human being. And so,
Wow.
but if any of those pieces are not there, then, and honestly, the vast majority of initial denials are due to administrative errors. They're
I believe it.
because, yeah, they're
Yeah.
because of a provider number not being right, or somebody's EIN number, or whatever being off, a birth date being incorrect.
Birthday.
Yeah, just little dinky things. And
Yeah.
so those are the things that initially get, that cause the most denials. Out of denied claims, only 33% ever get or appealed, get resubmitted, which is
Wow. That's such a small amount.
it's absolutely egregious, because you know, and a lot of insurers are actually counting on that.
They know that. Yeah.
They know that. So they're
Yeah.
going to deny something the first time on certain, I see that with core buildup sometimes. They'll deny on first submission, just crossing their fingers that you won't
Yeah.
fight it, that you'll
Yep.
roll over and take it.
They won't send it back. They won't send it back.
So
Yeah.
it's absolutely worth the effort to read the EOB, look for the reason for the denial, see if it's something that's most of the time something that's easy to fix and resubmit. There
Wow.
are times where EOBs are difficult. We have a call center also. We actually look at these EOBs, we answer coding questions, things like that. And so, you pay a flat rate for the year and you can reach out to us as much as you want to. And so we'll review those EOBs and kind of figure out what needs to be resubmitted, how you can fight for things. Again, if it's some stipulation that's in their plan document that says, it's a criteria you haven't met, or it's a service that they don't cover, then that's it. I mean, there's not a lot
Yeah.
you can do with it, but a lot of times it's a matter of not having the proper documentation.
Right.
4346, that's that scaling in the presence of moderate to severe gingival inflammation.
Yeah.
That one needs images. It's so much more effective to show the claims adjuster that this is not a healthy mouth. If you've a prophy is supportive, it is preventive, it is not therapeutic. Okay. The reason that 4346 is down in the perio section is because you're saying this patient has a disease.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, this patient has a disease. They've got gingivitis. They've got inflammation. And so if greater than 30% of the mouth has sites of inflammation, but no bone loss, then that's a 4346 patient. And to
Yeah.
be able to get that processed, okay, and not remapped to a prophy, which a lot of them do,
Yep.
you
Yeah.
have to say, you have to make the point with them that you are treating a disease. This is a therapeutic procedure, not a preventive procedure, not a
Yep.
supportive procedure. I'm not just polishing off stain or removing local irritational factors. I'm treating a disease,
Right.
and I'm trying to prevent this disease from progressing to an irreversible disease. And so, because once you got perio, once you've lost bone, it's gone. It's not coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now, with a gingivitis patient, a 43, 46 patient, you can turn that around. You can get them back to a state of health. And so it's a conversation that has to happen with the patient, and it's also a conversation that has to happen with the insurance company. You have to prove your case. So intraoral camera images of bloody, bleeding, nasty gums,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
helpful,
All day long, all day long.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bleeding on probing. If you show, that greater than 30% of the sites that you probed bled, well, that's a piece of evidence that's backing you up.
Yeah.
Everything in that needs to be there needs to be showing medical necessity.
Right. Yeah.
That's it. And the more pieces of evidence that you can have that show medical necessity, the better odds of getting that claims paid, as long as it's a covered benefit and you're meeting all those claims criteria.
Yeah. Love it. Love it, Greg. I love it. Listen, so I would love for you to share you mentioned that Practice Booster offers coaching. So could you share what other ways Practice Booster can help dental practices?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. There's a lot of things that we do. Of course, our written resources. We have all this stuff both in book format. If you like the physical copy, we also have ebooks. We also have it as an online version. It's an online database that's searchable, indexed. You can look through those things. So the books that are up there that you can see, we've got some that are. There's the coding book that everybody knows. There's an admin book. There's a book that just lays out its dental administration with confidence. That one is such an underutilized resource. It walks you through just about everything that the admin team needs to know about everything in their job. And so it's a handbook they can go to, and you can learn about a FedVip program, or how to legally give discounts, or can we do this or can we do that. It's all there in that book. We have a documentation book, and so that helps with it's got soap notes for all the different categories of services. It's talking about what all needs to be included with different procedures that are there. Then there's a medical dental cross coding book for those that are getting into medical coding. That's a whole different animal. And so
Mm,
it's got all the ICD-10 crosswalk and all that. We do the one-on-one coaching. That's our either revenue enhancement program, where it's literally me on the phone with your dental practice, and I'm walking you through what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, what you're missing, and helping you with that. And we also do fee analysis. When we go through there, we reset your fees based on multiple sources of fee data. It's not just something we downloaded off the internet. We're going to sit you at 75 percentile, and that's where you're going to be.
yeah.
It's all custom. And so we'll
Wow.
we'll we'll tweak it exactly for you and coach you through that. We have coordination of benefits training. We have coaching on implants. We have coaching on orthodontics. We have coaching on all those particular programs where you can actually have an advisor work for you. We have webinars. Many of them are free. Okay. Over on our Dental Zing platform, dentalzing.com, ZING. We have a lot of on-demand resources there. Everyone is a CE hour. You watch it, you get a free CE hour. Well, not free, but the ones that you're paying for, there's some there, and then there's webinars that are at no cost also. And
Great.
so doing a lot of that, and then I'm speaking all over the country, along with our CEO, Dr. Jim DiMarino. He was he actually comes from the insurance side. He was a practicing dentist, and then he was a dental director for a major insurance company for many years. He's worked behind the scenes on a lot of different uh, products and all with different companies as well in their development. He's spoken all over the world. So he's our CEO, and he's also a lecturer that gets out on the seminar circuit and does his thing. And so we've got a lot to coach. We've got a lot to talk
Yeah,
about.
sounds like it. Sounds like it. You guys have a lot of offerings for practices.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm familiar with the book. I think the book is great knowledge. I think dental office managers should definitely jump on it, especially if they're new to coding. I mean, it can give you so much information and really teach you and give you the steps needed to really help your practice and so that you can become better. Unlike how I had to do it, where I was like working in a practice that we took every single insurance plan known to human.
Right.
It's just insane. We took every plan and I had to learn it the hard way. So I think you guys, what you have is great. And I think that, if an office manager can learn this side of the dentistry, um, without having to go through the growing pains, then so be it. So how can dental office managers get their hands on a book, or get a little bit more info? What's the website?
It's practicebooster.com. It's
Yeah,
practicebooster.com. And
got
so
it.
you're able to go on there and you can find our the code advisor. You can find there's a store tab that's got all the books. There's a consulting tab that's got our coaching offerings. There's an events tab on there that's going to talk about where we're speaking in the future. We're also on we have dentalcoding.com. That's another resource that we have, and that's where my podcast lives. And so much like yours, I've got the Dental Code Advisor podcast, and I'm walking through different codes and how to use them, and interviewing different people in the dental insurance
Awesome.
industry. It's very insurance specific topics, and so that's also there, and that's where the ebooks are also living. And so we're about to do a major overhaul of our whole online presence. And so within hopefully just maybe even by the time this webinar or this podcast comes out, it's going to be up and running. So within the next month or two, it should
Nice.
be there. And so it's going to have a lot more functionality and searchability, and be able to do some things we haven't been able to do before. We're looking forward to that. So
Cool. Looking forward to it. Yeah.
absolutely,
Awesome.
man.
Yeah. All right, Greg. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it today. For you taking the time out to really just kind of give us more info on yourself, and how you found your way into dental coding, which I loved your story, and just really kind of giving us more info on Practice Booster. So, again, I want to thank you for your time, and you know, maybe we can connect more. Maybe we can figure out ways to bring more education to the group. I'd love to jump on your podcast.
Oh yeah,
You
I'd
know,
love to have you. And like I said, I got to know you from your coding with Kyle.
yeah,
When I would Google what's out there about a different code or resource, I found you, and so
yeah,
that's pretty cool. So
yeah.
I know you from that before I knew you from your dental office managers group. So
Awesome, 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 man. Well, again, thanks again for coming on, and guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and we will see you next time. Take care.
okay, thanks a lot.